United Spinal Association is dedicated to enhancing the quality of life of all people living with spinal cord injuries and disorders, including veterans, and providing support and information to loved ones, care providers, and professionals. We believe no person should be excluded from opportunity on the basis of their disability. Our goal is to provide people living with SCID programs and services that maximize their independence and enable them to remain active in their communities. United Spinal was founded in 1946 by a determined group of paralyzed World War II veterans in New York City who advocated for greater civil rights and independence for themselves and their fellow veterans. Rejecting the poor treatment they received at their local VA hospital, they decided to form a support group. From these modest beginnings, United Spinal was born. Since then, our core belief has remained unchanged. Despite living with spinal cord injury or disease, a full, productive, and rewarding life is within the reach of anyone with the strength to believe it and the courage to make it happen. Today, United Spinal is the largest nonprofit organization dedicated to helping people living with spinal cord injury or disease. We are committed to providing active lifestyle information, peer support, and advocacy that empower individuals to achieve their highest potential in all facets of life. United Spinal Association has over 40,000 members across the United States, individuals with spinal cord injury or disease, their loved ones, and care professionals. United Spinal chapters are self-dependent organizations that share the goals of United Spinal and support them within a specified geographical region. Presently, there are 46 chapters nationwide. They support the spinal cord injury or disease community in many ways, by promoting health and well-being, promoting inclusion and independence, organizing local events and projects, advocating for rights and accessibility, and offering information and support to their chapter communities. Our chapters may have different missions and programs, yet all share the same dedication to enhancing the lives of people with spinal cord injury or disease, their families, and those who provide their care. There are over 100 United Spinal peer support groups in the U.S., and the number is growing. These support groups provide peer-to-peer support for individuals, friends, and family members. In a support group, members provide each other with various types of help for the shared purpose. The help can take the form of providing and evaluating relevant information, relating personal experiences, listening to and accepting others' experiences, educating and guiding, or for providing sympathetic understanding and establishing social networks. Support groups may each have their own way of accomplishing their mission, but all of them share the goal of improving the lives of the participants. United Spinal is committed to advancing public policies that lead to greater civil rights and independence for people with disabilities. Throughout our history, we have advocated on behalf of individuals living with spinal cord injury and disorder through state and federal legislation and accessibility litigation in the courts. Our members know that we are on their side and will remain there until our support is no longer needed. By leveraging all of our resources, we have stronger involvement in community affairs and more opportunities to advance public policies. This allows us to form key alliances that expand the reach of our mission. Our public policy initiatives focus on expanding education and employment, improving enforcement of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ensuring adequate access to public transportation and taxi services, and amending Medicare rules that restrict many individuals to their homes and nursing facilities. We believe in access to quality, affordable health care, employment opportunities, self-sufficiency and independent living, consumer-directed quality health care and community integration, preservation of Social Security benefits, and protecting the rights of people with disabilities. VetsFirst is a program of United Spinal Association that assists veterans and their eligible family members in obtaining the benefits they are entitled to, deserve, and need. We advocate nationally for all generations of veterans, including individuals living with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injuries. Our advocacy efforts go far beyond offering words of support and encouragement. We take this fight to Capitol Hill to bring attention to issues that matter most to the men and women who proudly serve our country. We connect with thousands of veterans annually through our call center and online help desk, Ask VetsFirst. Our staff tackles each case individually, taking the time to discuss self-help tips and assist with questions on military separation, claims appeals, and state benefits. We also offer assistance and representation in claims for benefits and services before the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. In addition to providing individual support and counseling services, VetsFirst offers timely news and information across the spectrum of issues presently impacting veterans, including guides on self-help, state benefits, separating from the military, as well as exclusive features stories on military healthcare and VA funding compensation. Accessibility Services provides consulting services devoted exclusively to making our built environment accessible to people with disabilities. Their goal is to assist property owners and designers as they navigate the myriad of accessibility requirements that apply to any given facility, both at the state and federal levels, accessibility consulting, including architectural plan review, building site assessment and training for architects, code officials, and others involved in design and construction. Accessibility Services has been involved with many interesting projects, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, Princeton and Cornell Universities, Madison Square Garden, PepsiCo, Four Seasons Hotel in Las Vegas, projects with the Army Corps of Engineers, and the new Yankee Stadium. SpinalCorps.org is the home of United Spinal's Resource Center, a comprehensive collection of information related to living with spinal cord injury and disease. Organized by category, this vast directory provides insight and referrals on such vital topics as employment, accessible transportation, applying for benefits, and many more. Wheelchair Medic was started in the mid-1970s to ensure that our members in the greater New York City area had access to expert and caring wheelchair repair services. They now make approximately 1,800 road calls every year, in addition to weekly scheduled repair service calls at several medical facilities. New Mobility magazine is recognized nationally as the premier lifestyle publication for active wheelchair users. For over 20 years, it has offered information and personal stories that encourage readers to participate in all areas of life, take charge of their health, seek assistive technology, and assert their legal rights. New Mobility is now the official membership magazine of the organization, offering exciting opportunities to convey United Spinal's message of independence and advocacy to the disability community. Roll on Capitol Hill is United Spinal's signature policy event, which highlights key advocacy priorities for its membership and the broader disability community to ensure that legislators include wheelchair users and all people with disabilities in policy debates on Capitol Hill. Each year, around 100 of our members and advocates gather in Washington, D.C. for Roll on Capitol Hill to shape policies that impact health, independence, and quality of life for people living with spinal cord injuries and disorders. Attendees participate in a day of training, hearing from those involved in key policy issues to ensure they are thoroughly prepared for the main event, congressional office visits, where they will meet face-to-face with their representatives and other key legislators to personally discuss issues critical to the disability community, including such topics as the need for better access to health care, Social Security benefits, disability rights, employment opportunities, as well as accessible transportation. United Spinal Association has publications available for download and purchase on a wide variety of important topics, including Understanding the Americans with Disabilities Act, Fire Safety for Wheelchair Users, Accessible Air Travel, Accessing State and Local Government, and much more. Disability Etiquette, a publication focusing on information and tips for interacting with people with disabilities, is sought after and used by many organizations in their disability awareness programs. United Spinal Association offers a regular program of informative webinars presented by experts and available to anyone. Our webinars continue to grow in popularity, drawing thousands of attendees, including wheelchair users, healthcare professionals, researchers, students, and caregivers. Past webinar topics have included finding the right wheelchair, what you need to know about Social Security disability and Medicare, service animals, and many more. All of the webinars are archived on our website and available for viewing at any time. The New Beginning Backpack Program is a nationwide initiative that empowers individuals to overcome the wide range of challenges that accompany living with a spinal cord injury or disorder. The backpack serves to help people find quality healthcare and resources, employment opportunities and education, choose the proper adaptive equipment and home modifications, locate peer support groups, and find a new beginning. United Spinal Association is distributing backpacks to people newly injured or diagnosed that are leaving hospitals and rehab facilities. The backpacks contain information and consumer resources on mobility and medical equipment, disability benefits, accessible housing, leisure and travel, healthcare, and much more. Most people are universally unprepared to at first live with a life-changing injury or disease. The quicker we can reach these individuals and their family members and caregivers, the better their outcomes will be. United Spinal Association's chapter leadership meeting is held annually in various host cities throughout the country. The goal of the meeting is to bring together our regional leadership to discuss a multitude of topics that affect the spinal cord injury and disorder community. The strategies we developed at this meeting help strengthen our organization and provide a clear path moving forward to assist the people we serve across the country. The meeting offers representatives from our national network of chapters the opportunity to meet face-to-face with United Spinal staff to share their experiences in serving their communities and how to maximize outreach. The meeting covers everything from fundraising and board development to membership benefits and future events. The gathering also gives attendees a chance to socialize and build relationships that will help them run their chapters in the future. As World War II ends, over 671,000 American soldiers return home wounded and/or disabled. Many are in desperate need of treatment and care. A small band of paralyzed veterans in New York City established a support group to get the services and assistance they needed to live independently. Soon after, this small group joins forces with other disabled veteran support groups in New York City and forms the Eastern Paralyzed Veterans Association, EPVA. One of the association's first initiatives is to fight the passage of the VA Automobile Grant so that wartime paraplegics, quadriplegics, and amputees could buy specially equipped vehicles. 70 members of the association hold a public demonstration in New York's Grand Central Station to gather signatures supporting the nation's first accessible housing bill to get federal funds to build accessible homes for paralyzed veterans. Days later, President Truman signs the legislation into law. The association advocates for equal access to federally funded buildings and facilities for Americans living with disabilities, leading to the passage of the Architectural Barriers Act. This act requires that facilities designed, built, altered, or leased with federal funds are designed and constructed to be wheelchair accessible. James J. Peters, a Life magazine correspondent and the association's future executive director, exposes the deplorable conditions facing the paralyzed Vietnam veterans at the Old Bronx VA hospital. The article receives national attention and causes public outrage, leading the VA to establish a National Spinal Cord Injury Service Office in Washington, D.C., designed to address the needs of paralyzed veterans. Within 10 years, the hospital is replaced by a new, improved hospital. The association advocates for the eventual passage of the Rehabilitation Act. This law prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in federally funded programs and improved access to, among other services, healthcare, social services, recreation, housing, and transportation. Perhaps most importantly, the Rehabilitation Act gives people with disabilities educational opportunities they had never enjoyed before. New York City settles the 1979 civil suit brought by United Spinal Association, agreeing to make all city buses accessible, retrofit key subway stations and commuter rail stations, and ensure that all new stations are designed accessible. The settlement also establishes a paired transit system for people unable to use mass transit. United Spinal reaches a similar settlement with the city of Philadelphia in 1989, and together the two rulings become the model for the public transit provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was enacted in 1990. The association begins its RAMP program, Residential Accessibility Modification Program, a service to improve access to members' homes. This includes building ramps, widening doors, retrofitting bathrooms and kitchens, and installing lifts and elevators. The association helps to establish the PVA-EPVA Center for Neuroscience Regeneration Research. It opens at West Haven, Connecticut VA Medical Center in conjunction with the Yale University Medical School. The Yale Center has been on the forefront of cutting-edge research throughout its history, and numerous firsts in understanding the mechanism behind spinal cord injuries and disorders. The association files a lawsuit challenging the Department of Veterans Affairs, alleging substandard care for paralyzed veterans at the Castle Point, New York Veterans Medical Center. A settlement in 1994 initiates the Clinical Practice Guidelines, which promise to elevate spinal cord injury care throughout the veteran system. The association played a role in writing portions of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, the landmark civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability. Over 1,000 wheelchair users and other people with disabilities gather on the White House lawn to witness President George H.W. Bush sign the ADA into law. The ADA ultimately protects the basic rights of over 43 million Americans with disabilities. It provides a clear and comprehensive national mandate for the elimination of discrimination against individuals with disabilities. The association has used the ADA in transit, employment, and accessibility cases, as well as polling place access disputes. We have used ADA to fight for community integration to the maximum extent feasible for those with disabilities because, as the U.S. Supreme Court held in Olmstead, a case which required the states to provide care and shelter in communities when possible and not in institutions. Unjustified isolation of individuals with disabilities is properly regarded as discrimination based on disability. The association's advocacy efforts helped make New York City's entire bus fleet 100% wheelchair accessible. Every month, more than 60,000 riders with disabilities ride the New York City lift-equipped buses. The association settles litigation with the City of New York, which results in curb ramps being installed on all street corners in the city, totaling over 168,000 corners at a cost of $300 million, to ensure that wheelchair users can navigate the streets safely. Eastern Paralyzed Veterans Association expands its mission in an effort to help all Americans with spinal cord injuries and disorders, including veterans, and becomes United Spinal Association. The association creates its VetsFirst program to assist veterans and their eligible family members in obtaining the benefits they are entitled to, deserve, and need. Today, VetsFirst continues the important work to uphold the values, objectives, and mission needed for our nation's veterans no matter when or where they served. The Bronx, New York VA Hospital is formally renamed the James J. Peters Veterans Affairs Medical Center to honor the lifelong dedication to the health and welfare of spinal cord injured veterans of our late Executive Director Jim Peters. Secretary of Veterans Affairs James Nicholson and Senator Hillary Clinton are keynote speakers. United Spinal Association celebrates its 60th anniversary on Monday, May 22nd with a private reception in the Grand Central Terminal in New York City. The terminal's main concourse is the site of the organization's first public demonstration in 1948 to gather signatures supporting the nation's first accessible housing bill to get federal funds for veterans to build accessible homes. Grand Central was also the site of the historic 1985 legal settlement between the association, the city, and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which eventually resulted in the first 100% accessible bus system in the nation. United Spinal Association announces the acquisition of the National Spinal Cord Injury Association to lead its membership and resource division. With more than 125 years of combined service to the disability community, United Spinal and NSCIA unify to become the single largest membership organization dedicated to improving the lives of people with spinal cord injuries and disorders nationwide. United Spinal also welcomes New Mobility magazine as the publication of the organization. United Spinal Association mobilizes disability activists from its national network of member chapters and support groups for its first annual Roll on Capitol Hill, an advocacy event in Washington, D.C. that directly expresses to legislators the need for greater access to health care, wheelchairs, and policymakers, critical to the health and well-being of people with disabilities. The theme for the event, Do Nothing About Us Without Us, captured the ongoing desire of people with disabilities to play a key role in shaping policies that affect their lives. New York City's Taxi and Limousine Commission has voted unanimously to expand its accessible taxi fleet to 50% by 2020. The unanimous decision is a huge victory in a long battle that spans over 15 years of litigation and includes a class action lawsuit filed by United Spinal, along with other disability groups, in 2011 that argued that the TLC must provide meaningful access to New York City's taxi system under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. United Spinal and Disabled in Action, plaintiffs on behalf of all New Yorkers of voting age with mobility and vision disabilities, won a unanimous panel decision by the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit that found that the Board of Elections of the City of New York discriminated against voters with disabilities by failing to make its poll sites accessible to voters with disabilities on election days. United Spinal Association's initiatives in research and education, government policy and legislation, civil rights and advocacy, accessibility and architectural design, and competitive athletics have made it the fastest growing not-for-profit in America dedicated to helping those with spinal cord injuries or disorders.